Clay demands we remain in the moment and stay with our flow of experiencing. Joshua Nan. May 10th, 4:55 p.m. I was able to turn it off today and focus on this coil building, which I found extremely mesmerizing and completely engrossed, where time disappeared. It's been a while since that's happened. 4 hours went by incredibly fast. I was in a state of flow. This flow state is a body-mind connection. I felt physically connected to the material and a sense of urgency to bring something so formless to life. I felt as if I were having a conversation through my hands with the form that was emerging. I curiously wondered what these first two objects meant. It has taken a while to understand them. Their cavernous physical forms evoke natural places, a cavernous space in which I can feel safe and protected. They also represent those moments in time when I was first learning the material and remind me of the flow I experienced. I have uncovered deep meaning in these first two pieces. Metaphors are a conduit toward meaning making, a mechanism of change. Objects often become symbols of nonverbal expression, ways in which we subconsciously process the unknown within. May 12th, 5:31 p.m. We did slab building today, and I really like coil building. It was much more intuitive. I just felt more emotionally connected to it. Slab building really turned on my cognitive design brain. It's different. It doesn't feel like it came out of me naturally. I had to sketch things out and think about balance and form and geometry, instead of it being just shaping and pinching and pulling and feeling the clay move in my hands much more easily and shaping a thing out of nothing, instead of drawing a thing and then making a template and putting it into clay form. I was mindful of this seduction back into design and a cognitive approach, and actively chose to return to working with the material in the more sensory manner I'd used for the first project. I used my agency to redirect my process, and began experimenting with the material differently, applying cues from the first project to meet the requirements of the second project. I actively pushed myself into a more experimental zone. I explored the clay in many ways, creating organic shapes and more architectural forms that are not functional.
Okay, on the way in, you can drop that brick on the ground if it's hot.
Okay, spring.
8, 10. Good.
Spray on the way out?
Yep, spray on the way out. Done. You can dip it in the...
May 27th, 10:12 a.m. It is the last day, and we are unloading the kiln, and I feel oddly disconnected from what I made. I feel like I could end the class and not see it. I don't know if it's a nervous thing or I was more enthralled at the process than the end product. I believe this feeling is connected to the changes I experienced through the process of creating. Changes that occurred via mechanisms that are often cited in art therapy that indicate therapy is working. Flow states, sensory experiences, meaning making, experimentation, pleasure and play, self-awareness, and mindfulness. Simply seeing my final work was not going to change me, and it was a metamorphosis that I had ultimately been seeking. Materials are my medicine. They are our medicine as art therapists. I discovered this so deeply in my experience with clay. During my practicum at the hospital, months after my immersion, I was working in clay alongside a patient and a face emerged. I had never sculpted a face. I had no intention in that moment. It simply happened. I began making more heads and faces, mostly grotesque in form, and often giving them to my patients. I was subconsciously making meaning of and externalizing my physical, embodied experience of witnessing trauma and illness. I was also empathizing deeply with their experiences and expressing it in the best way I knew how, to create something for them that represented my experience and internalization of some of their worst moments. These pieces were containers for my experiences of their physical pain. Being human is an inherently physical experience. It is through my body that I understand people. Maurice Merleau-Ponty. The heads continue to evolve, and I've become more and more drawn to creating them. The more we practice and engage in art making, the more we gain a greater awareness of our own wisdom. Some of us see our artworks as reflections of inner knowledge captured in time. Others see their artworks as a process of piecing fragments of self-identity together to discover new ways forward. Paraphrased from Teresa Van Lith. In 2018, I left a 20-year career in the graphic design and advertising industry. I hadn't planned for anything. I simply quit one day and never went back. I realized my mental health was at risk. I celebrated with a ritual burning. There's a lot of profanity in this clip. Being well-versed in profane and colorful expressions of emotion is a prerequisite for working in advertising.
Well, it's called graphic fucking design. How about we just call it that? WordPress training? Oh god. We're gonna reposition ourselves as a non-profit, even though we're actually not. Dry coding, what the fuck is that? Two-color press, it's important. Patients really think of themselves as a consumer. Abso-fucking-lutely, because we don't have socialized fucking healthcare. Fuck this job.
I recognize now that this was a metaphor for releasing myself from my identity as a designer. What I didn't realize was that a deep unknown remained ahead, a liminal state that I've been experiencing since starting my journey toward becoming an art therapist. Liminality is an opportunity to embrace the disruption of self and to reconstruct one's identity in such a way that the new identity is meaningful for the individual and their community. Nick Beach.
Well, that was pretty long. Wait, where are you standing? Oh, I guess it doesn't really matter. And why aren't your parents here? What is going on? What are you doing? Oh, right, that thing. That's right. Right. So, did you ever find yourself, evolve, figure out your identity? I'm just curious. Okay. So, now what? What are you gonna do? Good job! You did it!